Good morning, Mr. Steve Letwin. Thank you very much for doing this. I appreciate your time.
Trevor, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
For the listener, you're the CEO of Mancal Corporation?
I am, sir.
But what is Mancal Corporation?
Mancal stands for Mannix, Calgary, and it was created in 1998 when Fred Mannix and Ron Mannix decided to basically split their current company at the time, LORAM, which was Long Range Mannix, into two. And so Fred created Mancal with his half of the proceeds from the crystallization of the value, and Ron created Coral Holdings. And I was fortunate enough to be involved on the crystallization that was led by RBC and played a role in the Pembina Oil and Gas sale. I was asked by the brothers to help out in the sale of the Talisman, which I did. We were very fortunate to get a very good price for it, and Fred was pleased and Ron was pleased. And Fred asked me to join the Mancal board in 1998. So I was one of the first directors, and I've been on that board now 27 years. I became CEO in March of 2020 when there was a leadership change. Retired from a company called IAMGOLD in Toronto, where I was there for 10 years. And prior to that, I was COO of Enbridge. I ran their U.S. and international operations for 12 years. So it's been fun, but Mancal's been very successful. Fred has had a great company, creating a lot of jobs, creating a lot of wealth, and it's been a lot of fun to be part of the organization.
And for context, for the listener, the business interests include energy, real estate, coal. I think there's some general investing in there.
Yeah, we don't talk, and you and I spoke a little bit about this, for privacy reasons. We don't give sort of a lot of quantitative information for this family's sake, but we do about 14,000 BOE a day, all Alberta-based in the oil and gas business. We have probably about 2 million square feet of real estate. Most of that is industrial space, but we are now building two multi-residential buildings, one in Marda Loop and one in Curry Barracks. Julian Mannix, who is one of Fred's sons, the youngest, he works with me. He's just an outstanding young guy I've had the pleasure of working with. He's diversified our portfolio. We're down in Arizona, Casa Grande, just south of Scottsdale. We have interest in Phoenix. We have interest in Denver. So Julian has really turned the portfolio around in a good way. We have 2.4 billion tons of undeveloped coal, a lot of that in Saskatchewan. And so we're really excited about the opportunity for our thermal coal assets, which are just outside the Saskatchewan power plants. And I think you've heard Premier Moe talk about continuing the use of coal and, in fact, increasing the power supply from coal over the next 5 years. So we're kind of strategically positioned there for some good growth. We have about $130 million in private equity and venture capital, which is headed up by Steve Fike. Great guy. We got Steve from Graph Skates when we bought Graph, or had a position in Graph. And so when you put all that together, and then we have money in the market, of course, on an ongoing basis that Goldman Sachs manages for it. But we have a corporate team, Dave Whelan, Eric Ma, Landon Bailey, who manage that. It's been a spectacular 5 years for us with Goldman. So we're sort of firing on all cylinders right across the board. It's been one of those runs where our people are very engaged and our morale is very high, and we were just nominated and selected as one of the best managed companies in Canada, top 50. And we've been nominated by Deloitte for regionally now as one of the best managed companies in Canada. So there's a lot of excitement at the company. And as you and I were talking, I've never worked for a better group of people. The Mannix family is unique. They really support their employees. They really promote loyalty. They promote service. And they're fair and balanced people. They're in it for the long term.
Mm-hmm.
Fred Mannix had an opportunity in 1998 to take his money, put it in the market, and clip coupons. And he didn't. He decided to create a company and create jobs. And he's done that. And he's a great Albertan. He's a great Canadian. So, and I also mentioned we've been blessed with a great chairman, Elizabeth Cannon, former University of Calgary president. I've never worked with a better chair than Elizabeth Cannon. I've worked for some good ones. She is one of the unique combinations of strong intelligence, strong emotional quotient. She's really done a good job for us over the last 4 years. So taking over from Fred, because Fred retired as chair.
Mm-hmm.
So just a fantastic opportunity for people to work and grow.
Like you said, Mancal's a big employer too.
All right, 81 people. So we've grown from about 45 to 81 in the last 3 years, and we'll probably do another 50% growth in the next couple of years.
Right.
And our land inventory is huge, and our opportunity in the oil and gas side is huge. Byron Lutz, our president, he's been a magician, and with his team, growing our oil and gas base, and that will continue to go. So we're in a growth mode, and we're going to look for opportunities in this environment to do so.
Maybe to go back to the beginning on your career? Where are you from originally?
I grew up on a small farm in southern Ontario. I was the oldest of 6. Didn't have a lot of money. My father, at the age of 37, he was a brakeman on the Canadian National Railway. He used to punch tickets on the passenger train between Niagara Falls and Toronto. He decided to go back to school. And there's 6 of us on the farm, and we were in partnership with a doctor from New York. And I said to my dad, I was 15 at the time, and we didn't have anything. I mean, I was a teenager. I was looking for a car, and I said, "You can't do that. You can't go back to school full time." I said, "You had your chance. You blew it. It's not our fault." Because he was making like $9,000 a year, and his agreement with the doctor wasn't a real good one. But my dad, he was an unbelievable human being. I mean, and my mother. I mean, can you imagine at the age of 37, 6 kids, living on a farm, going back to university, he got a degree in economics, stood second in university. And so, yeah, but what he had to do is hand the farm over to the boys and my sisters. And so we renegotiated the agreement with the doctor, and we had 200 head of cattle and a mixed farm. But I guess where I learned a lot in terms of business was then. My father was very empowering. So I guess he had to be. So we hired and we fired. We were bringing in 10,000 bales of hay every summer. We had probably 12 young guys working for us and gals. And so I learned a massive amount. And the other thing that happened was, because my father went to university and did well, it was kind of like, well, I guess I better do that too. So all 6 of us went to university. All 6 of us have master's degrees. And he really set the stage. And again, without my mother's help, it wouldn't have happened at all. But I started at Procter & Gamble in Toronto in finance. And then I got a call in 1980 from Dome Petroleum. I don't know if you ever heard of Dome Petroleum.
Yeah.
Jack Gallagher. And I came out here and was part and parcel of the Hudson's Bay Oil and Gas acquisition. And that's where I met Jerry Meyer, who regrettably just passed away here on November 4th. Phenomenal human being, Jerry Meyer. But Jack Gallagher was a great man too, and I got very close with Jack. And I spent 7 years there. mainly in the accounting finance area, because we were always fighting off bankruptcy until about 1988. And I always remember Jack, because Jack got cancer, unfortunately, and I went up to visit him at the hospice in the Northwest Calgary, and he was, days away from passing. And I said to him, I was holding his hand, and I said to him, any advice? And he said, yeah. He said, don't drink too much of your own whiskey. Mm-hmm. He said, I should have used equity to buy Hudson's Bay Oil and Gas. I didn't listen to people. I thought we were undervalued, and so I used debt. Mm-hmm. And he said, I put people in the company in dire straits. Mm-hmm. And he said, the other thing I regret, and he said, you were young enough to recover from it, but he said, I really encouraged employees to put everything they had into the shares of the company. And he said, we had 55-year-old men and women mortgaging their house to buy Dome and Dome Canada shares. Mm-hmm. And it basically went bust. And he was right. I was able to recover. I was only 25. Yeah. But people who were late in their 50s didn't have a lot of time to recover. He was a great leader, great Canadian. But I always remember that. Don't drink too much of your own whiskey. So if you can use equity to grow your company, use it. And debt is not your friend. Mm-hmm. And you're seeing that in the patch. The patch has reinvented itself. Mm-hmm. Because they've paid down debt and they're paying dividends, and so it's a much different environment. But I was at Dome itself till 1988, and then I joined Charlie Fisher at a company called Encore. We lost Charlie a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. Again, just a phenomenal human being. And we had a great team at Encore. We spent about 6 years there until I joined what became NUMAC. We sold West Coast Petroleum to a group of Hong Kong investors in 1992. Mm-hmm. And I spent probably about 100 days a year in Hong Kong for 3 years, working with these Hong Kong billionaires, and learned a phenomenal amount. Just these were guys that started from nothing and had 25, 30 billion US of net worth. Chen Yutong, Li Shaoqi, Stanley Ho. Mm-hmm. So it was an excellent experience for me personally. But when NUMAC got sold, or they decided to sell it after 3 years, I got hired by Jerry Meyer, George Watson at TransCanada. I started their energy business down in Texas for 2 years, and then came back as Chief Financial Officer of TransCanada Pipeline for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. And then Brian McNeil and Don Taylor and Pat Daniel from Enbridge recruited me in 1998 to 99 to come to Enbridge. They had a massive challenge with their unregulated business in Toronto. So I moved the family to Toronto for 4 years, and we were able to fix it. We got a deal of the year because of what we were able to do. We turned it around. Pat became president and CEO, another great CEO. Pat Daniel was a phenomenal guy. He always said to me, Steve, if you noodle long enough on a problem, every problem can be solved. And, he was right about that. He was an extremely intelligent guy, ran a really good company. And after I did what I was supposed to do in Toronto and came back to Calgary, they sent me to Harvard, and I did that 4-month advanced management degree, which I loved. Mm-hmm. And after that, they sent me to Texas to replace the guy that was retiring, Dan Tutcher. And probably some of the best years of my career were in Texas, as we were talking.
Yeah.
We shot the lights out in Texas.
Built a lot of stuff.
We built 29 gas plants. We bought pipelines. We grew the company from about a $2 billion valuation to $5.5 billion. And I've never had as much fun. What a great group of people.
Mm-hmm.
And, but at the age of 55, so I was down there about 8 years at the age, and I was with Enbridge 12 years. At the age of 55, I was looking to run something. I was able to retire from Enbridge with a pretty good financial package, and which again was because of Pat and the Enbridge team. And I started to look around, and I got a call from a gold mining company in Toronto called IAMGOLD, which was in a lot of trouble. And I think they said, "I hear you're a good repairman." And when I look back over my career, I kind of thought, well, you know what? That's kind of right. I was kind of a repairman. I was good at fixing things right from the farm all the way through. So when I went for my interview, I always remember I had 4 directors on the board who all had gold experience, said, "What in the name of God are you doing here? You have no experience in the gold business." And I said, well, I looked at this pretty hard, and a lot of what happens in mining happens in oil and gas. And I said, I looked at the struggles you're having, and I think I can help you, and I can help fix it. And I spent the next 10 years fixing that company. And, it was just, I've been gone for a few years, but it was just selected as the top performing stock on the Toronto Stock Exchange. And in 2017, I was selected by one of the banks as being the best reward for value CEO in Canada out of 100 companies. It wasn't just mining companies. So it was a great run for me. I spent a lot of time in Africa, a lot of time in South America, a lot of time in Asia. And I worked with a great group of people. But probably the best project that I was part and parcel of was Côté Gold. And I remember when I bought the original deposit, it was called Trelawney at the time. The market wasn't happy with it. In fact, somebody in Amsterdam started a website called firesteveletwin.com. And they had a couple of websites like that for gold CEOs. And I got to tell you, I came off a high of Enbridge, because Enbridge to me was one of the best run companies in the world. And again, Pat Daniel and Richard Bird and Steve Worry and Mel Billich, these, you couldn't find a better team of people working together. So I come off this high of Enbridge, I come to IAMGOLD, and I make this acquisition, and somebody starts this website, and my daughter sees it, and she calls me, and she was crying. She said, "Dad, somebody started this website." So I went on the internet, and I was horrified. And whoever was doing it hadn't quite finished it. And I started to turn things around. And so the website kind of went dormant. And I asked my son-in-law, who was with TELUS, I said, "Is there any way you can buy that website so we can?" And he did. Okay. For $1.99 when they expired. And he still has it. I said, don't ever give it up in case somebody else wants to start this website. Right. Anyhow, it was, listen, when you're a CEO, you go from highs to lows to highs to lows. And, but I got a lot of support from Fred Mannix at the time, 2013, 2014. Fred Mannix had just the enthusiasm to pick the phone up and call me and say, "Hey, I hear you're going through some tough times there. Here's some ideas." He like that. I'll never forget that as long as I live. And I took a lot of what he had to say and I implemented it. And that's when I became the CEO of the year when it comes to value for share price value, what I got paid versus where the share price went. And the share price moved up 272%.
Yeah, for the listener, it was about a 10x in your years.
10x.
Yeah.
So And the other thing I did, which I'm very proud of and got a lot of help on, was impact benefit agreement with the First Nations, the Mahogany First Nations, Matagami First Nations, and the Flying Post. And had a lot of help from guys like Ben Little and Steve Crozier. But probably one of the best things I've done, going to the reserve, seeing what the First Nations were going through. And I dealt with, the chief there, Chad Boasso, for the Matagami First Nations. And we became best friends. And we still are best friends. He's no longer chief, but that IBA has changed the entire face of the Matagami First Nations. And I will take credit for some of that, along with the team. And Chad Boasso deserves credit. It can be done. Let's put it that way. As long as you keep white lawyers out of it, it can be done. And it was him and me in a room with some other guys. And I said, get rid of the white lawyers, because the only reason they're here, and I've got lots of lawyer friends, was to make fees, which we were paying for. So the longer they drew it out, the more fees they got. It took us 7 years. And but that's one of the most successful projects in Ontario and in Canada. So, and then of course, after 10 years there, I said, look, I'm 65. I've done my duty at IAMGOLD. My dad always had a saying. He said, if you can leave them clapping, it's a good time to leave, and don't come back. And right then I was getting a lot of applause, and handed it off to the COO, Gord Stoddard, who's a great guy. And Fred picked up the phone and coincidentally made the call, and I came back to Calgary after being away for 18 years, something like that. And it's good to be back. I love this city, and I love what's going on. So that's kind of a quick run through, but 46 years I've been working since Procter & Gamble. Turned 70 in July. I look in the mirror and say, geez, I don't feel 70. But my daughters always say to me, Dad, just keep taking your supplements.
They don't look 70. So.
Well, thanks. I don't feel 70 either, thankfully.
Yeah.
So I just keep moving, as the word goes. When you stop moving at my age, bad things happen. So
maybe before we get to Mancal, again, for the listener, IAMGOLD's smart cap's about $10 billion today, and you had a great run while you were there. What did you do? Maybe 2 or 3 things that really made the stock perform so well. What did you do differently?
I lived the job. I lived it. And what I mean by that is I spent a lot of time in the field. So I went to Africa 57 times. And when I went to Africa, I had 8 bodyguards with AK-47s. Like West Africa isn't a fun place for white males. But for whatever reason, and maybe it's the farm life, maybe it was working with cattle and taking risk, but I wasn't stressed. I wasn't afraid. When I went to bed at night, there was a guy with an Uzi sitting outside my door. There were 7 other guys. I had one kidnapping attempt in Bamako, Mali, where they rushed the airport, and a couple of guys got shot dead. But there was a $2 million ransom on my head. So there was always so we had 140 military at our mine site in North Burkina Faso. So it was
wow.
Yeah, but you know what? Don't ask me, but I never stressed about it. So what I think I did is I really engaged with the community. I really engaged with the employees, and I had a lot of help from my team there. I had a great team at IAMGOLD. And I'm a huge fan of empowerment, massive fan. And again, I think I get that from my mom and dad. But so I don't abdicate. I said, look, if you need to make a decision and you think it makes sense, run it by me, but don't take forever to do it. And we had some great innovation. We took some risks, and it's a 10 banger for people. Like we have employees that are millionaires now. And as I say, the First Nations benefited significantly as well. So empowerment would be at the top of the list, along with engagement with employees. And I don't think I can talk enough about being in the field so employees could talk to you. I remember getting up one morning and we had these circles of exercise circles. And I was in Burkina Faso at our site in Essakane. And there's nothing there to speak of other than the mine and a couple of villages. But the cleaning ladies had a session going on where we were doing exercises. And they asked me, because I always get up early, they said, well, why don't you join us? So I joined them. And they took photos, and I really enjoyed it. And I was sore the next day because they could, they could bend like pretzels, these people.
Yep.
But I would just say that engagement at the field level is absolutely critical. We did that at Enbridge as well. And the last thing is, I have a saying: bad news early, good news late. And I really encourage people to get bad news out as soon as you know about it. And again, at Enbridge, we had a trucking company as part of our organization down in Houston. It was in Louisiana. And the guys in Louisiana because I used to go there every Friday, put the alligator on the table so we can all look at it and see what we need to do. And I use that today, that saying today. So what I did at IAMGOLD is I said, look, don't wait to tell me about bad news. I can always take good news. Doesn't matter when you tell me about good news. But if you wait too long to tell me about bad news, I'm not going to be able to help you fix it. It's like if your child is in school and you don't get a report card early enough to know that they're struggling. As a parent, you don't have time to fix it or help them fix it. And I would say that would be the third thing I did, that I sort of got in the culture is tell me where these alligators are so we can work together and fix it. And that in a mining organization, there's always alligators, like literally every
West
day.
Africa.
Yeah, all the time.
Literally, maybe.
Yeah, all the time. And so get that bad news out. Communication is critical. And let people know what's going on, so that we can all work together. And don't feel bad about telling me about bad news. So as part of the culture, you encourage people to tell you and don't punish them for making a mistake. That's your worst thing. So that all led to a culture of success. And I couldn't be happier for IAMGOLD. I mean, it's run by a new CEO now, Renaud Adams, who was with IAMGOLD in the past. And, that team's doing a great job, and I have nothing but good things to say for them. I've benefited personally, obviously, from, the run-up. I kept my IAMGOLD shares.
I was going to ask.
And I took all my bonuses in shares, by the way.
Smart.
Yeah. Well, people thought I was crazy.
In hindsight, yeah.
Yeah. They said, whoa, what are you doing? But I took my bonuses for 10 years in shares. And so, and I kept my shares, and because I believe in what I was doing. And it's turned out to be a great thing. And I'm really happy to see that company thrive.
Well, it's at an all-time high now.
Yeah, all-time high. Yeah, $20 stock price. When I was there, it was $1.60.
Incredible.
Yeah, wow. It came up quite a bit. I mean, there was a point in time, I remember when Fred Mannix called me. It was Saturday morning. I was having breakfast. I was quite down because it was ugly as all sin. And that call lifted me up. And I just thought to myself, there's a guy out there supporting me. He believes in me. Believe in yourself.
Yeah.
You got to believe in yourself. And the other thing, every so often you got to reinvent yourself. You can't stay the same. And, I don't care whether it's a marriage, a friendship, a business. If you don't take the time to reinvent who you are, you could become pretty boring and you become vulnerable to change.
Mm-hmm.
So I think one of the biggest strengths that you can have is to look in the mirror and say, you know what, I've got to do something, or I'm not going to be able to move up any higher or take on these challenges. Whether it's education, like my father at 37 reinvented himself. I've seen guys like Pat Daniel and Richard Byrd and others reinvent themselves on a continuous basis. So you grow, you learn.
Mm-hmm.
And Fred Mannix was a huge part of that for me. Like, don't sit still.
Mm-hmm.
You see some challenges, you're going to have to reinvent yourself. Let's do it. And I really encourage that at Mancal. Don't be afraid to reinvent yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to make mistakes, but you know what? That's part of the journey. So it's just something you really have to promote. And I think a lot of people that, don't get success, get discouraged, need to say, hey, well, maybe it's not them. I need to do something. I need to change.
Yeah.
I need to reinvent. And it keeps things lively. It keeps things moving ahead.
And then, so at IAMGOLD, did you find a lot more gold? Did you buy cheap assets? What, like, from a business perspective?
I got lucky. That was part of it. But when we bought Trelawney,
found gold.
There was 1.6 million ounces.
I see.
Now it's over 30 million ounces.
Right.
And we had a great explorationist there, Craig McDougall. And I believed in it. I mean, I'm not a geologist, obviously, but and we financed it with equity. Mm-hmm. From Jack Gallagher's saying, I didn't go out and bet the farm with debt. Carol Banducci was great as our CFO. We kept the debt levels under control. Don Charter was a great chair. Don Charter is a brilliant guy. He was the chair of IAMGOLD, and Don Charter, one of the more underrated chairs in the business. He is extremely intelligent and gave me some good coaching as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it took some time, but I knew in my gut that this thing was going to be transformational, and we did it.
Combination of good capital allocation, and
yes.
Some good gold deposits.
You got it.
Okay.
And it's the gift that keeps giving because they keep finding more.
Right.
So, and at $4,000 gold, yeah. And all-in costs at $1,600, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that the cash flow they're generating is off the charts. And that's not going to stop. And I don't think the gold price is going to stop either, by the way. I think with the U.S. debt levels growing at exponential rates, and of course we have our own craziness in Canada, the fiats are under a lot of pressure. So gold, I think, is going to continue to have a pretty strong run here.
But you met Mr. Fred Mannix while you're at IAMGOLD.
No, I met him when I was brought up to help him with his monetization in 1998.
Okay.
So, but he was, I was on his board. And right. In 2013 is when he made his phone call to me to help me. And
okay.
So he became a good friend as well as, somebody that I was working with. And he also introduced me to, bird hunting and fishing. And he brought that back into my life, which I love. And we share ownership in a lodge up near Peace River in a town called Egershlim. So, no, he's been a great mentor. He's been a great leader. He's been a great friend.
Bit of history for the listener before we get into it. The Mannix family's been around for about 100 years.
125 years. Frederick Stephen Mannix, at the age of 14, got on a boat from Ireland by himself, came to Canada, and at the age of 17 started Mannix Company. He originally was digging irrigation canals, had horses to do that, and started his company in Manitoba and then eventually Alberta. And during the Depression, had to sell his horses to make payroll and put food on the table. Made some money, bought it back, and then grew it into a multi-billion-dollar asset. And then Stephen handed it off to Fred C. Mannix, who was Fred's father.
Mm-hmm.
And then Fred picked up his share in 1998, Fred P. Mannix.
Right.
So generational. And one of the few families in Canada that has stayed alive. I don't, there aren't too many Irvings would be an example, but not too many families out there that have been around 125 years and still doing well and have been able to keep it together. So very unique that way.
And you kind of had an unlikely path to end up as CEO of the Mancal.
Yeah, I mean, Fred, and I was on the search committee to find a new CEO. And Elizabeth Cannon was on that search committee, and I'll never forget it. As I say, I had decided to retire from IAMGOLD, and I had a great run. And I got a call from Elizabeth, and during Stampede Week of 2019, and she said, "There's been a development." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, Fred would like you to come run Mancal."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "What?" And she said, "Yeah, he'd like you to come run Mancal." I said, "Well, doesn't he want a young, vibrant guy that's in his 40s as opposed to a 65-year-old, not old man, but maybe getting older?" And she said, "No." She said, "He has a lot of trust in you, and he'd like you to develop a plan for succession for his family, his sons or daughters, and he thinks you could do that." And so when I met with Fred, he said, "I've got two objectives." He said, "You need to change the company so that we start growing again. And he said, the second thing I want you to work on is succession." He said, "That might be the more challenging part, but he said, I really would like to see a Mannix running this company again."
Mm-hmm.
And all five of the Mannix children are just phenomenal people. But Julian Mannix has made the decision to work in the company. He's been there as long as I have. He's outstanding. Jerry Meyer used to say to me, "I can always tell when somebody has the royal jelly." So, which was kind of neat, right? And I'd say all five of them have the royal jelly, but Julian's made the decision to stay and work, and he's just doing a great job for us. So, so anyhow, I'm doing what I can on both fronts, and really having fun doing it.
Is it tough to balance third and fourth generation influences with running a company on your own and making decisions?
Yes, it is.
And how do you navigate that?
I do the same thing I did at the other companies. I am very inclusive. So I don't play favorites, and I look for everybody's views and opinions, and I don't surprise anybody. I don't do things without consultation. That starts at the top with Fred and Leanne Mannix, and Fred's blessed with a wonderful wife. And I don't do anything without the kids knowing about it. So, and they're not kids, they're grown adults, but they have their own association. It's called the Forge, and Fourth Generation. And it's a good base to have communication. But, family businesses have a lot of attractive features. You're not dealing with the public market, but it also has challenges, and that you've got to deal with they have their own views on life, and, just like any other family. But they're a great family. I mean, really bright and really engaged. And what I'm seeing now, Trevor, is, I'm 70 years old now, as I said. I mean, something like AI, which we've introduced at Mancal, and I'm using AI. I would never have guessed what AI could do. And a guy like Julian, who went to Harvard as well, brought AI into the company.
Mhm.
He came back from Harvard and said, we're missing out. We got to get into this. This was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And God bless him, we have. But this is where a guy like me eventually obviously has to hand off and say, look, you're much better equipped to deal with this than I am. You grew up with technology. I remember the satellite phones in high school buying a Texas Instrument for $400, which now you can buy for $2.
Yeah.
I mean, Moore's law is in effect, and it is doing its thing. And, there are going to be challenges with that, but there's so many opportunities too.
Yeah. And so from a capital allocation perspective, which I guess you could argue is your main job at Mancal nowadays, you guys have energy, real estate, coal, some general things that you've got some involvement with. But is there a segment of the business that you're most interested in nowadays, and how are you thinking about that?
Energy is always at the top of the list, along with real estate, obviously. And we've got 11 private equity / venture capital investments as part of our program that Steve Fike heads up. Dave Whalen, who's our CFO, incredibly bright guy, and Eric Ma have been absolutely instrumental in orchestrating how to allocate this capital and to protect the balance sheet. I said I went to Harvard, and somebody would say to me, what did you learn at Harvard for $100,000 US?
Yeah.
And I say, there's one thing that the finance professor said: never run out of cash.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true in your personal life, it's true in business.
Yeah.
So we are extremely diligent, vigilant about cash allocation. And I would say we want to make sure we protect our oil and gas business so that it's not only sustainable, but it can grow. We want to diversify our real estate business because, we're seeing good value out there, especially in Calgary, in Alberta. We need to feed some of our private equity venture capital businesses that look very promising. And one of the more opportunistic things that looks really good for us right now is this undeveloped coal. In Saskatchewan, we have probably 500 million tons of lignite that can be used for Saskatchewan power plants. And we were just at Premier Mo's fundraising dinner in Estevan. Fred came with me, Julian, John Parkhill. I see some significant upside opportunity there. And I give a lot of credit to Premier Mo, Jeremy Harrison, their Minister of Energy. They're saying, look, coal is being used all over the world. Obviously, we are concerned about doing the best we can with the environment, but we're not going to hurt our own people with high electricity prices because the federal government has their heads in the sand about costs. And I would say this about our federal government. Our cost structure is getting totally out of control.
Yeah.
And I can be as green as the next guy, and I want to protect the environment for my grandchildren.
Sure. Yeah.
But let's not be ridiculous about these regulations you're putting in place and harming the standard of living of Canadians. We need a lot of money for healthcare, education, and so on. You're bringing in a record number of immigrants that we're having to subsidize. Where is all this money coming from? And if you're going to put a cap on our energy development, how does that work, by the way? So I see that coal deposit, which again, Fred Mannix being a visionary, kept as a huge potential upside if we can work it properly. Julian's driving that with John Parkhill, doing a great job.
Yeah. So the critic would say coal is a stranded asset nowadays, but do you view value in coal and that
absolutely
is a big value prop?
Absolutely. China's building 1,000 thermal coal power plants a year. India, same thing. Where are they getting the coal? They're burning coal from Indonesia that is 40, 50% lower grade than Canadian coal. So by restricting Canadian coal exports, what are we doing to the planet?
Right. It's
With our religious philosophy about carbon.
Right.
Like, put your head on straight.
Yep.
United Nations and liberal government. If you're going to deprive the exports, the Chinese and Indians are going to go somewhere else. They don't really give two hoots about us.
Yep.
So why would we restrict that when we have the transportation system to provide higher grade coal to China until they can move out of coal instead of burning low grade Indonesian coal and polluting the environment 4 times more?
Right.
For how many more years?
Yep.
So I think we have this centrist view that we can solve the world's problems. And it's a little bit bizarre,
right,
to be frank with you.
So there's still value in coal.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Another thing I've thought about is, do you think that if Alberta had kept their coal, we would have had less power redundancy problems? As someone who's been...
Well, yeah. I mean, they did that, they put us into a deficit position. They bought it out, and now they're importing electricity.
Right.
What?
Yeah.
Alberta, I mean, of all places, in Saskatchewan, is giving us electricity.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think, again, ideology can really do harm if it isn't well thought out. And I said this to you before. Trudeau, to me, was a stupid person. A lot of people say he's stupid. He's not a stupid person.
Right.
But his ideology, along with some of his ministers, again, wacky when it looks at the economics. And again, we all want to get to a clean environment, but doing a standalone, self-sacrificing strategy where you're harming Canadian standard of living, I don't think is a viable strategy. Our food bank visitations are up 400%. Look in the streets at what's going on. Look at what's happening to our deficit. Look what's going on in terms of our productivity. We're one of the lowest if we are the lowest in the G7. Nobody's bringing money into Canada. It's all government funded.
Deficit.
And you and I as taxpayers are funding that. The government can't attract enough public-private investment, so they're taking it on themselves, controlling the investments, and our cost structure is beyond belief. Trans Mountain Pipeline. Again, nobody's fault. Don Farrell, excellent human being in terms of running, great success. Mark Mackey, great guy. He worked for me. Very good businessman. $7 billion budget, $35 billion actual costs. Who in their right mind would invest in a country where it's got a 500% cost overrun? And Greg Ebel, great leader, Enbridge, is he going to build a pipeline in Canada with that kind of structure? I don't think so. So we got to get our heads around what we're doing with these regulations. And or we're going to continue to fund it from the government. And you and I are going to continue to have higher taxes. It doesn't make any sense.
Nothing you're involved in is real estate. What's your thoughts on real estate?
I think Alberta is one of the best places to be. You're seeing it. We have 220 people every day moving into the province. I think, again, Julian's done a good job diversifying. I think there's great opportunities in places like Arizona, Texas, where I lived for 10 years. So I think, again, great job. We have some great land inventory. I'm not going to talk about where it is, but again, great work done by Julian and some of the past managers in the real estate side. So I think we have some excellent opportunity. And again, you look at what's happening in Toronto, which is a complete disaster, worse than anybody really knows. nobody wants to buy 400 square foot condo. Surprise, surprise, and pay $700,000. Surprise, surprise. So all of this condo inventory is sitting out there, bought by investors who are now going to get burned. And, the best thing they can do is try and rent it. But the Toronto real estate market is a complete, unadulterated mess. So we have to be careful in Calgary we don't overbuild and find ourselves with a situation where we have a lot of inventory. So you got to be careful, be strategic, and don't get yourself into a situation like Toronto is where you can't give away these condos. But I see some great opportunities here in the province. And I see some great opportunity in certain parts of the U.S.
Do you think the tide is turning for traditional energy like oil and gas in Canada?
I hope so.
I mean, it's one of your biggest holdings.
Yeah, I hope so. I believe oil prices will move back up. I think there is a limited supply. And we're not getting off oil and gas for any time in the future. I mean, it's going to be here for a long time. I sit on the Hess Midstream board. So we are part of Hess.
Yeah.
And they just sold to Chevron. And the major acquisition related to the Guyana offshore oil wells. Chevron bought supply because there's a supply deficit.
For sure.
So, they're smart people. Chevron's one of the better managed companies in the world. And they look to the future and say, we're going to buy it. We have more opportunity in oil and gas in Alberta, Saskatchewan, British Columbia that you can shake a stick at. What we need is a cost structure and a government that supports the industry. And the U.S. investors will come back and will help us grow this business by putting money into it, into well-run Canadian companies that helps pay for good education, good healthcare, good infrastructure. But by putting up these crazy regulations, these emission caps that don't make any sense to anybody, you scare away people.
Yeah.
Look what happened in 2014. Everybody left. It was like a ghost town here, right?
Yep.
So Canadians had to reinvent themselves. We talked about reinvention. Canadians had to reinvent themselves. And, they have. The white caps of the world, really well-run companies.
Yeah.
There's example after example.
Yeah.
You get people like Myron Stadnick, who we talked about, who's on our board. You're not going to find a better oil and gas executive out there. He's a tremendously bright, pragmatic guy. And we have good Myrons out there helping us. So, yeah, I think there's a great future if we let it grow.
Right.
We got to stop the friendly fire. Why are we shooting each other when we need the money to grow and help our kids?
Mancal has a lot of capital intensive businesses. Yes. How do you view that in the world of tech and capital light opportunities and the range of returns available to you when you do have options? How do you think about that?
We always look at our options, and it is a shark. I call it a shark-fed business. You got to keep feeding the shark with capital. AI is not much different. There's a lot of capital. In fact, 50% of the performance on the S&P has been AI driven.
Yeah.
And you see companies like Meta and Google and Amazon putting huge amounts of capital into AI. We're not a technology company.
We have options.
We have options, and we do that more through the private equity side. Frederick Stephen Mannix said, money's made at the end of a shovel. And to a large extent, we still do that, right? We're in oil and gas, we're in real estate, coal, but we aren't blind to what's going on out there. And that's why a guy like Julian and his siblings are healthy for us. And we're quietly making investments in that AI world. And we're doing it a bit stealth. We don't talk about it a lot, but we have some pretty healthy investments. So we're hedging our bets a bit. We're not blind to what's going on out there. we make some healthy investments, and we allocate capital accordingly.
What is a good compound annual rate for you? What do you look for?
We have to have at least 8%, at least. And, or we start to shrink. So, we can't be invested in fixed income. We got to be growing. And, whether that's on the real estate side or oil and gas, private equity, we've got to see that.
So 8% across the board is generally where you start.
Yeah, where we start. We've had good years, close to 20. We've had poor years, lower than 8. But on average, we've got to be above that.
And when you're not an industry expert, so to speak, and you're in various things, how do you avoid overpaying for assets when you're looking around?
I would say we are industry experts in oil and gas. We are definitely. We have some of the best technical people in the country. And in real estate, I'd say the same.
Hire good people.
Oh, God. Number one, we hire good people. And so, our oil and gas department is world class. And our real estate department and our private equity involvement, world class. And our finance team, world class. Our HR team, world class. IT, world class. We go for the best. So.
And nowadays, valuations can be tricky because in the world of tech, where the idea sometimes is more valuable than the actual cash flows and that sort of thing, do you lean in on return on equity and cash flow? Do you have metrics that you run everything by? How do you think about that?
Fred has a saying, if it's worth anything, measure it. And if it matters, measure it. Evaluate, remeasure, and take whatever action you need if your measurement isn't up to par with expectations. So we measure everything, and we publish that every week. So we know exactly where we are and where we need to be, and we review it on a monthly basis in this Petroleum Club, actually. We meet in one of these rooms and we review our performance every month, and everything that matters is measured. And if we have to change something, we do. We remeasure it and keep doing it on a constant basis. So there isn't, at any point in time, we know exactly where we are, especially around capital allocation.
Right. Cash flows.
Never run out of cash, right?
Yeah.
And so that balance sheet is like a Bible.
Right.
And we live by it.
And so in the world of ESG, was it a challenge to stick to your metrics on cash flow and demanding returns?
Yes.
How did you think about that?
Well, we had to live with it, and we had to understand the ESG.
You stuck with coal.
Yeah. And we minimized capital allocation until we could get a handle on it. But a lot of people who oppose coal don't even understand coal. They just think, oh, it's bad. And so you get, country and Western singers writing songs about it because it's popular, because people think, oh, it's, doing damage. But there are a lot more damaging things out there. You talk about going nuclear. What are you doing with the nuclear waste, by the way? So I would say, yeah, we had a maneuver through and manage through that, but we were successful doing it. We're good corporate citizens, so we follow the rules.
One quote I read is, you underwrite downside first.
Yes.
How important is it to minimize risk in the business?
It's everything. Risk management is everything.
West African gold mines.
You manage everything.
And what would be an example?
On the oil and gas side, looking at the types of wells we're going to drill, what kind of risk we're willing to take, the cost of that, what the risk reward is on drilling a Montney well, a Duvernay well versus a Cardium. That kind of evaluation goes all the time. How much do we want to put in multi-res versus industrial?
Right.
Industrial is a much easier bet than multi-res. So how much do you want to allocate that way? And on the coal side, how far, like you said, Trevor, how far do you go out on the risk matrix? And we sat fairly dormant until recently, until we got a more of a clear vision on where it might go. But when you do see that vision, you can see that path, you take advantage of it. At all times, let me say this, and whether it was Enbridge, TransCanada, Dome Petroleum, IAMGOLD, Mancal, there has to be a path to net present value. If you don't see a path to net present value, do not waste money, do not waste time.
Right.
I say that about everything. So let's not chase dreams. Let's make sure that you can see a clear path for shareholders, investors to realize net present value. And at IAMGOLD, you asked me what made the difference. We showed a path to net present value. Enbridge, we showed a path to net present value. Mancal, we're doing this.
Always.
Yes.
So how much do you walk away from in that, with that mind frame?
Well, you can walk away from a lot if you determine that, it's not going to reach NPV. Cut your losses. I mean, don't stay in the game putting good money after bad. If you can't see a path to NPV, if something changes and you can't see that path anymore, then get on a different path.
Right.
And do it sooner rather than later. Bad news early.
What's one technology you're betting on that no one's talking about right now?
I don't have that. I don't.
I think you did E3 lithium.
Yeah. We looked at it.
Okay.
I sit on the Frontier Lithium board myself, so
right.
I'm a believer in that company. Walker family, great company, great family to run it. So lithium, I think, again, if we can get through these regulations, I mean, there's the best lithium mine in the world in our country. Why in the name of God are we not pushing the development of that asset?
Yeah.
Highest quality, highest amount of tonnage. And it's sitting there.
Yeah.
It's just
hard to
bizarre.
believe.
It is hard to believe.
What keeps you up at night?
Well, I'm a good sleeper. And I think one of the strengths I have is, at least my daughters say this to me.
For business.
They say you don't get stressed. For business, I would just say making sure that you've got as much of the risk circled as you can. There's always going to be something out there you don't see coming, but trying to manage to make sure you don't have another, perfect storm where you have one of these deep corrections that you're not ready for. We always stress test our balance sheet.
Mm-hmm.
So we test it assuming there is a major correction. And again, one of the guys that I was very close to that passed said to me, never be forced to leave the table. And we never want to be forced to sell. So if I'm laying in bed thinking about anything, it's trying to think about things that could cause us harm. And again, that balance sheet being managed properly puts in a position so we're not forced to sell. And you never want to be forced to leave the table. And a lot of people in 2009, investors that got hurt, left the stock market and were too afraid to go back in. And when it rebounded, they didn't get the advantage of the rebound and they were left with 60% less of their portfolio. Mm-hmm. This happened to a lot of people that were near retirement age.
Yeah.
So, you don't want to be forced to sell. And so to answer your question, I think about things that could have that impact on us and we manage around that.
As we move towards the end, what advice would you give to an investor looking to start out, maybe build their own fund or even just their own savings and that area of life in general, capital allocation, what you're good at? What would you tell them?
Stress test everything. Stress test, take a look at your savings, take a look at what you can afford to invest. Assume that certain scenarios could happen. Be ready for that because, by the way, you're going to have volatility like constantly. Mm-hmm. So never run out of cash. never be forced to leave the table, and be in it for the long term. That's the advice I would give.
Who knows? If you hold your gold shares, you may find yourself at $3,000 gold price, $4,000.
Trevor, if anybody would have said to me that it's November 12th, 2025, gold would be at $4,100, I would have said, what type of cocaine are you on? But Pierre always said to me, Pierre Lassonde, it's going to 5,000, Steve. Yeah. And I used to say, oh, yeah, right, Pierre. He's right.
Yeah.
And, he's long-term. And at Enbridge, I did the same thing. Pat Daniel did the same thing. We believed in the company, and he led by example.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the largest independent shareholders of Enbridge. And God bless him, it paid off. IAMGOLD, I was the number one independent shareholder of IAMGOLD. Number one. And at Mancal, I take all my bonuses, or did. All of my bonuses were in phantom Mancal shares.
Mm-hmm.
All of it. And I wanted to tell Fred, if I'm not making money for you, then I shouldn't be making money.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, you've got to have skin in the game. I mean, what other vote of confidence can you give to investors than, putting your money where your mouth is?
I think that's a great place to leave it.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, good to meet you.
Quick shout out to Myron for connecting.
Yeah, I will. Myron, great guy.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.